Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to today's session. So today we are going on to lecture. Oh, I'm sorry, lecture this 3. Okay, it's not 2, it is lecture 3. All right. So Art and Culture is a small textbook. We are following the 11th standard and Introduction to Indian Art. Okay, this is the textbook that we are following. It is a small textbook, so only one more lecture will be there. Tomorrow we will finish the whole thing. Okay, tomorrow will be the last lecture on this one, and by that the entire history portion will be done. After that, you can revise and study yourself. All right. So today we are going on to the third lecture in the Art and Culture series using the same textbook. Welcome to Madhav Sankar Warrier classes. You can subscribe to my channel and get all the updates from my Telegram channel given here. The link to the Telegram channel is also given in YouTube description section. All the materials and PDFs etc. will be updated in that channel. So today we are looking into two chapters. One, a small chapter, the later mural traditions, chapter 5, and then chapter 6 that deals with temples, temple architecture. That is a comparatively lengthier chapter. So these two chapters will be covered today. Again, okay, I mean a lot of things we are very familiar. Okay, most of the things, say like the different kinds of temple architecture, Nagara, Vesara, Dravida styles, etc. All these things are already known to us because we saw some of it in ancient India. Not in depth, but at least we know superficially what all these things are. So these are topics which are known for all of us, so it will be easier. And then there are specifics, examples of each temples, and certain temples individually we have to look into, like the Lepakshi temple or Khajuraho temples, etc., etc. So overall, again, a dry topic, but still, it's interesting because it's all about temples and architecture and things, a lot of things we already know. So use this session to revise your knowledge also. Okay. And yeah, the first chapter, it's not about temples, it's all about paintings. Later mural traditions. All right. So let's start. Of all the paintings that we have, if you remember, it all started from the way Bhimbetka caves, Ajanta caves, etc., etc. But this continued. Okay, these kinds of mural paintings or wall paintings continued over time. But however, some of whatever is remaining, okay, we only have very few number of sites where the paintings have survived in its complete form. Clear? From Bhimbetka and all, the cave paintings and all, they are still very well preserved and all. That's why we said the artisanal quality or the quality of the materials they used are extremely high. But as time went on, say in the medieval eras and towards the later part of ancient India, the Cholas, Pandyas, those times, Vijayanagara Empire in the medieval India, these periods also have lots and lots of beautiful paintings. But we do not have many. Okay, we do not have many that remains. Only a few are still in a very good condition. Sculptures too were plastered and painted. We will look into some of them. And we will also see some cave excavations. Alright, here when I say mural paintings, it does not actually mean cave paintings alone. Mural paintings can be, of all types, like the modern day mural painting, which are done on various other surfaces also. Okay, everything is counted. So, starting with Badami. Okay, let's start with an area in Karnataka, modern day Karnataka state, that is Badami. So we all know that this is the capital of Western Chalukyas. I hope you remember this. I have already talked about this in one of the previous classes. So roughly, Karnataka was ruled by the Western Chalukyas for about 50 years, and this happened after the Vakataka dynasty. Again, a very prominent dynasty in India. Vakatakas declined and Chalukyas came to power. And it is during this time we witness a lot of art mural paintings from the Karnataka region. So it is a Chalukyan king named as Mangalesha. Okay, Mangalesha patronized Badami caves. Okay, Mangalesha is actually the younger son of Pulikeshin I and the brother of Kirtivarman I. These two names are familiar for us. Pulikeshi I and Kirtivarman I. We have at least heard about these names. Not too much important names, but still. Mangalesha is the son of Pulikeshi and the brother of Kirtivarman I. So he is the Chalukyan king who patronized the excavation of Badami caves. Okay, in these caves, there is an inscription in cave number 4, which actually mentions the date 578 to 79. All right, so this gives us an exact period, exact date. Okay, until now we can regarding Ajanta or say Bhimbetka, etc. All we can say is a rough year. Okay, I mean 3000 years ago or say 2000 years ago. That's what we are able to say. But here actually we have a date which actually mentions 578 to 79. So we have an exact proper dating. And this cave has an image of Vishnu, cave number 4 in Badami. All right. And because this cave has an image of Vishnu, the cave came to be known as Vishnu cave. Obviously, based on the painting that was seen in this cave. All right. This one also has some other beautiful works such as palace scenes, Kirtivarman and the elder brother of Mangalesha seated inside the palace with his wife and feudatories watching a dance scene. Figures Indra and his retinue also. So various kinds of paintings are there. Most important one is the Vishnu painting based on which the cave is named. Then you have the palace painting where the king himself is shown along with his brother, etc., etc. And then there is a painting regarding Indra and his retinue. All right, all these are mural paintings that happened around this period of time. Now, if we observe these mural paintings, we can get to know a bit more in-depth features. For example, sinuously drawn lines. All right, fluid forms and compact composition. So it is not rigid or stiff or anything. It is sinuously, so a curvy pattern. Clear, and it is in a very fluid form, which means it's not breaking away or anything. It's a continuous painting in a very sinuously, say, curvilinear lines and all, and it has a very compact composition. Compact composition means the entire thing is in a very concise and in a compact manner. It's not like the olden Bhimbetka or say Ajanta paintings where things are here and there. All right. Also, we can see very gracefully drawn faces of the king and the queen, which actually reminds us of the modeling in Ajanta. Okay, remember the Padmapani, Vajrapani figures and all, Queen Maya Devi's dream, etc. So we can see some similarities to Ajanta modeling as far as faces are concerned. Their eye sockets are very large, eyes are half closed, protruding lips. All these are features that we saw in yesterday's class when we talked about Ajanta, Ellora, Elephanta, so and so. Clear. So using such simple lines and such curvy lines, the artist has brought forward a lot of volume. So these paintings are excellent examples of mural paintings or the later phase of mural paintings in India. Now, coming to certain important dynasties as such, Pallavas, Pandava and Chola kings. All right, mural paintings under these three. So Pallava kings succeeded the Chalukyan kings, that we all know. Okay, if you have looked into the history, after Chalukyas, Pallavas came into the throne in Andhra Pradesh and northern Tamil Nadu region above the Pandya kingdom. Among the rulers, Mahendravarman I is very, very, very important. All right, I will tell you why. But temples at Panamala, Mandagapattu and Kanchipuram are all his contributions of him, Mahendravarman I. And in the inscription of the Mandagapattu temple, there is actually some titles that is inscribed that is associated with Mahendravarman I. Mahendravarman I has been called or titled as Vichitrachitta, or Vichitrachitta means what? Curiously minded. That is what Vichitrachitta means. Chitta means mind. Vichitra means curious. So curiously minded. So Vichitrachitta. Chitragara Puli. Okay. Then Chaityakari. Chaityakari means temple builder. Chitragara Puli you already know. Okay, Chitragara means artist and Puli means leopard. So tiger. Okay, so tiger of paintings. So Vichitrachitta, Chitragara Puli and Chaityakari all are the same king only. That is Mahendravarman I. And this is inscribed in the Mandagapattu inscriptions, in the Mandagapattu temples. All right, this belongs to the Pallava period. Now, Panamala figures, in Panamala, we can see a figure of female divinity in a very graceful manner. Okay, which also means in South India, we have female worship, okay, female god worship around this time. Not too much important, but just an extra point in your textbook. Then comes one of the most important temples, that is Kanchipuram. Kanchi, if you remember, was the capital of Pallavas. Okay, I hope you remember all that. We talked about it in last part of ancient India. So in the Kanchipuram temple, which is patronized by the Pallava king Rajasimha, we can see a wide variety of paintings. We can see Somaskanda, just a painting. Okay, faces are round and large, increased ornamentation. Torso still remains like earlier sculptural tradition but is elongated. So that is a peculiar feature. Most of it is, more or less similar to other South Indian paintings. Faces are round and large. Even now, even in the modern day murals, temple murals, faces are drawn as very round and very large. All right. Ornamentation is so much high. Okay, I hope you have seen some mural paintings in various places. I myself have drawn a couple of them. You can check it out if you want. But one thing very common is the faces are all very round. Okay, it's not like narrow, sticky kind of anything. It's actually very round, very voluminous, very high amount of ornamentation. Okay, I mean in very intricate designs. It takes a lot of time to draw for one, and because of the amount of ornaments and its precision works, etc., etc. But in general, the torso remains like earlier sculptural tradition. Torso means the upper portion, okay, from neck onwards to the abdomen. That's the torso, upper body. So that more or less remains like the earlier period. Only difference is it is a bit more elongated than the earlier ones. All these are features of Kanchipuram temple murals. Then Tirumalaipuram caves and the Jaina caves at Sittanavasal, also best examples of South Indian murals and under the say patronage of Pandyas. Tirumalaipuram caves and Jaina caves of Sittanavasal. Very important. Not all cave murals are associated with Hinduism. We have Jaina and Buddhism also. Buddhism we already saw yesterday, Ajanta and all. Sittanavasal caves are associated with Jainism. Okay, if you remember, Ellora is associated with all three, Brahmanical, Buddhist and Jainist. In the Pandya period of mural painting, again, we can see eyes are slightly elongated and at times protrude off the face. Very common features. But Pallavas, Pandyas, etc. are all fine as far as mural paintings are concerned. But the peaks, the most important contribution to South Indian art forms or say architectural works and paintings are given by Cholas. This dynasty was so successful and so powerful that they were able to contribute a lot into art and culture. All right. So when you talk about Cholas, obviously the first and foremost of the architectural works that comes to our mind is the Brihadeshwara temple in Tanjore, built by Rajaraja Chola. Gangaikonda Cholapuram, again built by Rajaraja Chola and his son Rajendra Chola. Then you have Dharasuram, also by these two kings. So Rajaraja Chola and Rajendra Chola were able to build a lot of important structures in the area of temple building. And in these temples, we can see beautiful carvings. So sculptural works can also be seen. Paintings are also there. Clear? But some of the best Chola paintings can actually be seen in Nartamalai. But not just Nartamalai, we can see some in the Brihadeshwara temple itself, where we can see two layers of paint. The upper layer painted during the Nayak period. Okay, there are two layers of paint that is seen in Brihadeshwara temple. The upper one is painted during the Nayak period. So who are these Nayakas? I hope you remember. We talked about this in medieval India. Nayakas are the, say, a kind of nobility during the time of Vijayanagara Empire. Clear? Vijayanagara and Nayaka style, very almost the same, but basically Nayaka style is a evolved form of Vijayanagara style. Okay, later form of Vijayanagara style. So the upper layer of painting in Brihadishwara temple is actually done during the Nayaka period. We can see Lord Shiva, Shiva in Kailash, Shiva as Tripurantaka, Shiva as Nataraja, and a portrait of the patron Rajaraja and his mentor Kuruvar. All these can be seen in the paintings of Cholas. Okay, Shiva himself in various forms. So basically, Cholas were very huge patterns of Shiva. Brihadeshwara temple itself is a Shiva temple. So naturally, the walls of these temples are painted with murals that are associated with the main deity, that is Shiva, in the form of Tripurandaka, in sitting in Kailash, in the form of Nataraja, and even since the Brihadeshwara temple is built by Rajaraja I, his portrait is also shown in this temple, along with that of his mentor Kuruvar. Okay, so that is it about Cholas. So Cholas contributed, I think probably the most as far as South Indian temple architecture is concerned. But equally important in the medieval era is the Vijayanagara murals. Vijayanagara Empire. Okay, Vijayanagara itself means the city of victory. And for all economic purposes, Vijayanagara was actually one of the most flourishing empires of South India. True, right? Under Krishnadevaraya, Vijayanagara reached its zenith. We looked into all these earlier itself. They also contributed a lot into art and culture. So Vijayanagara dynasty has ruled over a huge area expanse in South India in the banks of river Tungabhadra from Hampi to Trichy. And we can see some of their paintings at Tirupparakundra. Okay, the early phase of Vijayanagara style of mural painting can be seen at Tirupparakundra. Okay, so just have an idea which place is associated with which dynasty. So Tirupparakundra might, say it has a Tamil kind of slang. So we might think that it is a Chola painting or it's a Pandya painting, but it's actually that of Vijayanagara mural. All right. Now, among the Vijayanagara murals, some of them are very, very important and very world famous also. Best example, Virupaksha temple. Okay, one of the first temples that comes to your mind when we talk about Vijayanagara period is Virupaksha. So in the Virupaksha temple, we can see plenty of paintings. Most importantly, dynastic history and episodes from Ramayana and Mahabharata. So the paintings need not always be religious. It does not always have to do with gods and, say beliefs and all. Okay, in Virupaksha temple, we can see beautiful paintings on the dynastic history of Vijayanagara rulers. That is the secular part. Clear? Also, we can see the Vidyaranya panel. Again, a very beautiful mural work. Incarnations of Vishnu. Virupaksha is basically a kind of form of Vishnu. Okay, so we can see incarnations of Vishnu with large frontal eyes. Figures have very narrow waists also. Okay, that is another peculiar feature of Vijayanagara murals. The waist area, it is very narrow. Okay, even now we can see certain murals where the torso is shown in such a way that from the chest, as it comes down, the waist becomes extremely narrow. All right, that is another feature of this temple, Vijayanagara mural. Another important temple is that of Lepakshi. Lepakshi temple is actually in Andhra Pradesh. It is a Shiva temple, and that also is from the Vijayanagara period, and it keeps on the same principles and all. You can see a very beautiful picture, very beautiful mural, that of Dakshinamurti, Vijayanagara style in Lepakshi. That is the one shown here. Okay, Dakshinamurti of Vijayanagara style, that is depicted in the Lepakshi temple. Vijayanagara painters evolved a very pictorial kind of language. Faces are shown in profile and figures and objects two-dimensionally. Can be seen in the paintings of Nayaka period, that is at Tirupparakundra, Srirangam and Tiruvavur. So these are again some of the important sites where we can see the Vijayanagara murals. We already talked about say Tirupparakundram and Virupaksha temple, Lepakshi temple and all. Some other important ones include that in Srirangam and Tiruvavur. So Vijayanagara, at the peak of this empire, all the murals that have been made are known as Vijayanagara style of murals. But afterwards, we see the Nayaks coming into prominence, the polygars. Okay, Nayaks are also known as polygars. So when polygars came to power, the same Vijayanagara style has been continued, but with some minor differences. So the style that was used by these Nayaks came to be known as the Nayaka period murals. Basically, that is a later phase of Vijayanagara murals. Clear? And these can be seen in Tirupanakundram, Srirangam, Tiruvavur, so and so. Alright. Now, Tirupanakundram paintings. In Tirupanakundram, we can actually see two different periods of painting. Okay. One in the 14th century and then in 17th century. So around 300 years differences are there. So two different distinct periods of paintings can be seen in Tirupanakundram paintings. The early paintings are associated with the life of Vardhamana Mahavira. So it is associated with Jainism. Okay, then afterwards we can see Mahabharata, Ramayana, Krishna Leela, etc. So Tirupanakundram paintings consist of both Jainist as well as Hindu paintings. Okay, although the dynasty Vijayanagara Empire is a Hindu kingdom, still Tirupanakundram paintings depict both these topics. In the early phase, in the 14th century, the paintings are associated with Jainism, and later on, by the time of 17th century, we can see Ramayana, Mahabharata, Krishna Leela, and similar Hindu mythological topics. In Tiruvavur, we can see the very beautiful painting of story of Muchukunda. I don't know if you know the story of Muchukunda. Again, a mythological story. But anyway, it's not important for us. Just understand that the story is actually depicted in the Tiruvavur paintings. Chidambaram. In Chidambaram, we can see Shiva depicted as Bhikshatana Murti. Bhikshatana means what? No, begging. Okay, a beggar. So Shiva is shown as Bhikshatana Murti in Chidambaram, Vishnu as Mohini. You know the very famous story of Vishnu, Lord Vishnu in the Mohini form, right? So that story, so Vishnu as Mohini and Shiva as Bhikshatana Murti are shown in Chidambaram panels. Clear? Now, coming to another temple, Sri Krishna temple at Chengam. This is an exceptional temple. Why? Because there are about 60 panels of mural paintings. Exceptional mural paintings. About 60 of them can be seen in Chengam temple that is associated with Lord Sri Krishna. Obviously, because this is a Sri Krishna temple, the panels are painted with scenes from another avatara of Vishnu, that is Lord Rama, Ramayana. This is an excellent example of late phase of Nayaka paintings. Continuation of the Vijayanagara school. Clear? All these are very, very important temples. Okay, I hope you can, it might feel a bit, saturated. You might feel a bit saturated because a lot of contents and points are here. But don't worry about it. Try to follow it now. And then later on, once you read it a couple of times, it will all stick to your memory. Okay, so Nayaka paintings were more or less an extension of Vijayanagara style. That is something that we have already established. Set against a very flat background, male figures are shown with slim waists, but with less heavy abdomen as compared to those of Vijayanagara. So that is the difference. Compared to Vijayanagara paintings, in the Nayaka painting, the male figures are shown with comparatively less heavy abdomen, much more stiffer abdomen. Okay, not exactly protruding. So that kind of three-dimensionality is not there in Nayaka paintings. But it is actually a gradual evolution of the earlier Vijayanagara style. We can also see some infusing of movement which makes it much more dynamic. Best example, Nadaraja at Tiruvalanjuli. Okay, you know the Nadaraja form, right? Nadaraja is a very much dynamic figure. It has a lot of movement. It has a lot of vigor. Correct? So that is again an attribute of Nayaka paintings. Nadaraja at Tiruvalanjuli is a very good example of Nayaka period of South Indian mural works. Now coming to the last one, that is Kerala murals. Okay, my home state in Kerala. Here also we have a very peculiar kind of murals. Look at the image shown here. This is an image of Venugopala from the Sri Rama temple in Tripuraya. Now look into other images that I have shown you so far. Alright, so if you look at it very closely, you can see that all these are entirely different from Kerala mural. Kerala murals have its own characteristics. The most important one, the one thing that you can notice immediately are the colors, the intensity of colors. And you can also see the amount of precise works, and these details and designs given. Okay, so Kerala murals, because it's a South Indian painting, it obviously has some common features that is associated in general with South Indian paintings. So certain stylistic elements from both Nayaka and Vijayanagara schools are borrowed here. But then Kerala is very famous for Kathakali and Kalameduth. Okay, Kathakali, Kalameduth, Kudiyatam. I think you know about all these things. Kudiyatam is again, one of the first, and I think it is Kudiyatam is the first entry from India into the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. Okay, so Kathakali is basically evolved from Kudiyatam. So Kathakali and Kalameduth, all these are some traditional, art forms of Kerala, and the Kerala murals have a lot of influence from all these things. So naturally, vibrant and luminous colors. I don't have to tell you that again. Now, vibrant and luminous colors. If you look into my starting slide, okay, in this slide you can see Kathakali. This is Kathakali. Okay, so look into this Kathakali face and all. Okay, very vibrant colors, lots and lots of intricate designs, plenty of colors. See, so same kind of pattern or same kind of theme is given here also. Very vibrant colors, very luminous colors, multitude of colors. All right, and that three-dimensionality is also brought forth. It is not stiff or anything. It is very rounded face. Human figures are in a three-dimensional fashion. So the walls of shrines and the cloister of walls of temples and some inside palaces, all these are painted with these kinds of very beautiful mural works. We can see Kerala mural works in temples, in palaces, in the walls of shrines and all. And usually, or I think almost always, Kerala murals paint Hindu mythology. Something that is associated with Hindu mythology. It can be, say, a particular god. It can be an event. For example, Gajendra Moksha. Okay, it can be something from Ramayana, something from Mahabharata, something from Krishna Lila, whatever. Almost always associated with Hindu mythology. It's not exactly secular. Clear? And the best examples of Kerala mural paintings can be seen in Dutch Palace in Kochi. Okay, I mean, when the Dutch came to India, they had their branch in Kerala, and the Kochi Palace. Okay, there is a palace in Kochi, and it is associated with the Dutch. So we can see a lot of Kerala murals in the Dutch Palace in Kochi, Krishnapuram Palace in Kayangulam, Padmanabhapuram Palace, Pundarikapuram Krishna Temple, Panayanarkavu, Tirukuduthanam, Tripurayar Sri Rama Temple, Thrissur Vadakkannatha Temple, etc. etc. I mean, these are examples. Don't worry about their names at all. Just try to remember at least a couple of them. That's it. Okay, these are examples of South Indian or Kerala mural works. Mural paintings on interiors and exteriors of houses are very common in almost every place in India. Clear? We can see, not associated with temples or any kind of religious institutions, but in general, we can see some mural works both in the interior of houses as well as exterior of houses, especially in very traditional areas. Most of these are actually made by women. Okay, this has nothing to do with Kerala murals. This is an in general conclusion. So, for example, in the Pitoro parts of Rajasthan, Gujarat, etc., similarly, Mithila painting in northern Bihar, then Warli painting in Maharashtra, all these are very beautiful examples of such murals that we can see even in houses. Okay, we have to share. You can go in depth regarding different types of paintings and all. You can look into Mithila paintings. You can look into these Warli paintings. What are the Bundi paintings? Rajput school of painting. But those things are not given in this particular textbook. But in the current affairs portions and compilations and all, occasionally one or two paintings come up. Okay, especially when it is associated, it has something to do with government of India's some initiative or whatever. So at that time, do look into these schools of painting. Clear? So there are plenty of regional schools of painting in all over India, which has a lot of common things because it was once a part of a major empire, and then a lot of regional and specific styles also. Clear? So by that we come to the end of first chapter regarding the later mural traditions all over India, especially in South India. Okay, I hope you have a very brief idea about everything that I have said so far. We looked into the specifics of South India, started with Karnataka, Vijayanagara Empire, Pallavas, Cholas, Pandyas, and then we looked into Kerala also. Okay, try to remember the basic features and also one or two examples of each of them. That's it. Okay, now we come to the main chapter, that is chapter 6, Temple Architecture and Sculpture. So this is a comparatively lengthier chapter, but we will be looking into the very famous temples, most of which we have already, we are familiar with. So it will be very much, more like a recollection for all of you. Okay, so temple architecture and sculpture. Before that, good evening, Satya. Nayaka military chiefs maintain law and order. Yes, Satya, correct. Very good. Seema, good evening. Seema, good evening. How can we see paintings after Paleolithic period through secular lenses? No, I mean, Paleolithic paintings are, in those times, we do not have a religion. All right. I mean, there is a very famous judgment of the Supreme Court of India. I think it is in 1995 or around that period, which says that Hinduism is not exactly a religion. It is a way of life in India. Okay. So considering that, we can say, all these things that happened in the valley, Indus area and Gangetic Basin, etc., are all actually a part of the lifestyle in India. So all these are associated with the Hinduist or say Brahmanical tradition. But later on, when more religions came up, or Hinduism also began to be categorized or seen as a religion, and because of that, we see a lot of religious works coming up. Okay, I mean, especially, it's not easy to see plenty of secular paintings in this period. Most of them are associated with temple. And all these South Indian dynasties are Brahmanical. Clear? Or even if we are talking about some other dynasties, it is still it has a religion. It has a state religion. Okay, the king always patronizes one or the other kind of religion. We all know that. So there will be plenty of donations and grants, etc., given to that religion. So the paintings and temple works, architectural styles are all linked to that religion. So secular works are very, very secular work. The amount of secular works actually comes down, and mythological and religious works goes up in this period. But at some point of time, we will again start seeing many secular works. Clear? So here we are, again talking about temples and all, and most of these murals are associated with a temple or a palace, etc. Even if we draw some murals in houses and all, still it is associated with some kind of belief or faith or tradition. Correct. So secular paintings does not happen that often at this point of time, but we will see the revival of secular paintings as time progresses even more. But at this point of time, when the earlier or the later part of ancient India and early part of medieval India, most of them are religious and mythological themes. Okay. Then again, in the medieval phase, when Mughals and say Delhi Sultanate, etc., comes to India, there we see a lot of secular paintings. Okay, some of the Akbar's paintings that were made during the period of Akbar, say Shah Jahan, etc., they are all of secular theme. I hope you remember, we just very briefly mentioned that when we studied about medieval India. All right, so introduction about temples, okay, and the kind of architecture. So as I have mentioned, okay, just now I was saying about this. Most of these are religious in nature. Okay, plenty of structures has been built in this time which are of religious in nature. And since the three dominant religions in India at this point of time are Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, most of the architectural works and sculptural works are associated with these three religions. Clear? But not being of stone the ancient or medieval shrines in those areas have also vanished. That is true. But we have a lot of them still, in a very good condition. But because some of them were actually built using perishable materials, say there would have been a lot of woodwork. Okay, and wood does not stand for a very long time. It obviously will disintegrate. So using of perishable materials has led to the vanishing of some of the beautiful shrines which once stood in India. Clear? But we are going to cover the, whatever evidence we have that are still standing. So this is a map of India that shows the temple architecture. You can associate, or you can closely look into different sites and identify the area and all. Okay, this is not so clear. You can look into the textbook for better clarity. Okay, this is the same map given in your NCERT Standard 11 Art and Culture textbook. So the basic form of the Hindu temple. So we will start with Hinduism and then look into Buddhist and Jainist works. Okay. So in general, when we talk about temples, obviously there are differences. Okay, North Indian temples are different, South Indian temples are different. Then there are regional styles, etc. But there is a common form for Hindu temples. Clear? So we have something known as a cave-like sanctum. This is called Garbhagriha. So what? The Garbhagriha is the place where the main icon is placed. Okay, sometimes it's called as Sri Kovil in South India and all. Which means that in Sanctum Sanctorum, the main area, where the idol is placed. In a temple, there could be more than one idols. There will be many sub-shrines and all, sub-deities, etc. But the most important icon of that temple is placed in a small enclosure, and this is known as Garbhagriha. Alright? The entrance to the temple, which may be a portico, colonnade, exit hall, etc., that incorporates space for a large number of worshippers. This is known as mandapa. Clear? Just in front of the Garbhagriha, devotees, comes and that is the area where devotees stand and pray or something, or there could be some say music festivals or similar that kind of performances, etc. So you have a mandapa there. Some pujas and functions, say religious ceremonies and pujas are also done in this place. But usually this is for incorporating large number of worshippers. So that structure in front of the Garbhagriha is known as mandapa. Clear? From 5th century Common Era onwards, we can see a mountain-like spire which can take the shape of a curvilinear shikhar in North India and a pyramidal tower called Vimana in South India. So here comes the difference. Okay, here starts the difference between South India and North India. In North Indian temples, you can see above the Garbhagriha, there is something called as a shikhara. So this is the shikhara. Here the example shown here is the Kandariya Mahadeva temple in Khajuraho. So you can see that there is a shikhara, right? This structure just above the Garbhagriha that rises to a very high, very high. It's known as shikhara. But we do not see this kind of shikhara in South India. In South Indian temples, it's more like a pyramidal structure. Okay, not exactly a curvilinear structure. It is a pyramidal structure. And it is named as Vimana, not shikhara. We will study about this in the upcoming slides. At that time, it will be more clear. Then another feature is the Vahana. Every god has one or the other vehicle, right? If we talk about Shiva, we talk about Nandi. Okay, the Nandi, the very famous Vahana of Shiva. Similarly, when we talk about Subramanya or Muruga, we talk about peacock. Correct. Lord Vishnu is sometimes shown in the Shesha Shaina posture, where the Shesha snake is there. Ganapati is associated with Mushika, right? So almost all these gods have a Vahana. So that Vahana is also a very prominent. Vahana also has a very prominent place in the temple. Clear? So in general, the Indian temples can be classified into 3. The northern style is known as Nagara style of temple architecture. South Indian style is known as the Dravida style. And we have an in-between style between north and south that is prevalent in Deccan region. That is known as Vesara style. Okay, Nagara, Dravida and Vesara. These are the 3 types broad, okay, there are even sub-classifications for each of them. But in general, broadly, we can classify the temple architecture in India into three: Nagara, Vesara, and Dravida. Clear? Now we can look into the sculpture, iconography, and ornamentation. Before that, any questions? No. So let's continue. So again, iconography means what? Iconography means we are studying about the nature of idol and all. Okay, I mean, there are various sculptures, where are the method in which the idol is made, etc., etc. All these are associated with iconography. Okay, so every region and period has its own distinct styles. Okay, I don't think I have to repeat that point. Correct, right? Temporally and spatially, things keeps on changing. Temporally means time base. Spatially means based on geography, based on region. So both temporally and spatially, there occurs a lot of distinct styles as far as iconography is concerned. Okay, so if we look into some North Indian temples, in the Nagara temples, we can see river goddesses usually in the entrances of Garbhagriha. Correct. Ganga, Yamuna, okay, similar river goddesses are usually placed in the entrance of Garbhagriha. I think most of you would have seen this in a North Indian temple. We do not see this in South India. In South India, instead of river goddesses and all, we can see Dwarapalakas or Dwarapalas. Okay, Dwarapalas are actually found in gateways or gopurams in Dravidian temples. Dwarapalas means what? Gatekeepers. That's it. Dwara means gate. Pala means keeper. So gatekeepers. Gatekeepers can be seen in gopurams as well as gateways in Dravidian temples. Mithunas. Mithunas means erotic works. Okay, erotic sculptures and all. We saw some of them in yesterday's class. So Mithunas are seen in some of these temples. Navagrahas. All right, we all know about Navagrahas, the 9 auspicious planets according to Hindu belief and all. Navagrahas, Yakshas. All these are seen in Indian temples. And all historians and archaeologists actually study about all these things for understanding more and more about iconography. Clear? Forms of the main deity found on the outer walls of the sanctum. That also sometimes happens. Maybe, the temple belongs to Shiva. Okay, the outer walls of that temple will have plenty of forms of Shiva. Nadaraja will be there. Similarly, Ardhanarishwara Murti, that form might be there. So different forms of Shiva will be there. If it is a Vishnu temple, we might see the 10 incarnations of Vishnu. So that is another common thing that we see. The main deities, the wall will be decorated based on the main deity. We can also see some other deities or other iconographies associated to Ashtadikpalakas. Ashtadikpalakas are the, again, according to Hindu belief, they are the people who keep each of the directions. There are 8 directions, okay, the 4 cardinal directions and the in-between directions. So each each of these directions are kept or maintained by one of these Ashtadikpalakas. Clear? So they are also sometimes placed in the outer walls of temple. All right. Now, apart from the main shrine in a temple, we can see some sub-shrines as well. Subsidiary shrines around the main temple are usually dedicated to the family or incarnations of the main deity. So if the temple is that of Vishnu, then you might see incarnations of Vishnu in the subsidiary shrines. But it may not be exactly so. For example, in case of Shiva temple, you might actually see subsidiary shrines of the Shiva family. Okay, Parvati, Ganapati, Muruga. All right. So this is what happens usually, but we see some other differences also. The elements of ornamentation such as Gavaksha, Vyali, Kalpalata, Amalaka, Kalasha, etc. can also be seen. That is also correct, right? You can see some faces of dragon and all. Now, in certain temple architectural sculptural works, you can see Vyali face. Vyali means dragon. Kalpalata, Amalaka, Kalasha. Kalasha, etc. we talked about yesterday also in Buddhist structures and all. But in Hindu temples also, we can see, that auspicious pot kind of sculpture occasionally. Clear? This is known as Kalasha with the coconut kind of thing over and above it. We use this always in pujas and all. So such sculptures are also seen in Hindu temples, apart from the deities and all. Now let's look into some specifics, starting with the Nagara or the North Indian temple style. I hope you can see this image very well. I hope I'm not sitting in front of the image. Okay, no. So I will enlarge it. Okay, if you have any its clarity issues, I will definitely enlarge it so you can study this closely. So one of the main important things that we see in North Indian temples is the fact that they are built over a high platform. Think about the Islamic architecture. Okay, Islamic architecture in medieval India. Best example, Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is actually built over a plinth, right? It is not actually built from ground. It is actually built on a surface that is again elevated from the ground level. So North Indian temples are also like that only. Okay, there will be some stone platform and then the temple will be constructed over and above that. Clear? So you can see here this image, and here is something known as Pita. Can you read this? Pita? Pita is basically that elevated structure. Usually it is completely filled with steps. You have to climb all those steps and to finally reach the top of that platform, and then you enter the temple. Clear? So that portion is known as Pita. It's not seen in South Indian temples. Clear? We do not see this in South Indian temples. This is a very peculiar feature of North Indian temples. Now, they does not have elaborate boundary walls or gateways. That is again a very curious aspect. South Indian temples, almost all of them have a compound wall and also a gateway. A very beautiful gateway is there for South Indian temples. In North Indian temples, we do not see boundary walls, so obviously no gateway as well. Clear? Very important features of Nagara style of architecture. In the earliest temples, we can see one shikhara. Only one shikhara. Okay, just above the Garbhagriha, you can see one shikhara. This okay, you again look into this image. This is the shikhara. This entire portion, right from the top of Garbhagriha till the top, is known as shikhara. So in the earlier North Indian temples, you have only one shikhara. But later on, we can see multiple shikharas in North Indian temples. Plenty of shikharas are there, multiple shikharas. But always the tallest shikhara will be over the Garbhagriha. Clear? The Garbhagriha will always be underneath the tallest shikhara. So here is an example of medieval, say a later Indian temple. This is the Kandariya Mahadeva temple of Khajuraho. You can see plenty of shikharas, right? Here is 1, here is 2, 3, 4, 5. So multiple shikharas are there. But always you can see the Garbhagriha right beneath the tallest one. Okay. Now, shikhara which is square at the base and whose walls curve or slope inward to a point is called as Latina style, also known as Rekha Prasada type of shikhara. So let me try to draw it here. So if it is it has a square base. Okay, let me 1 second. If it is something like this, okay, it has a square base and from that it elevates into a point at the top. Okay, something like this. Clear? This is known as Rekha Prasada style or Latina style. So it gradually curves into the top point or gradually slope inward into a top point. This is known as Rekha Prasada or Latina style. But the base will be a square. Alright. Then second type of shikhara, it is known as Famsana. Clear? The first one is Rekha Prasada type of shikhara. Second one is Famsana buildings. So what is the difference here? Here the temple top is broader but shorter. Okay, this is a very tall structure. The Rekha Prasada style is very tall. But in the Famsana style, it is much more broader but not that much tall. The roofs are composed of several slabs that generally rise to a single point over the central building. So it is like this. Here is one slab. Here is second slab. Third one. Fourth one. So it goes on like that and finally reaches a single point. This is known as Vamsana type. So it is much more bulkier and broader, but it is not as tall as the Rekha Prasada type. This is the Vamsana type. So it does not curve inward, but instead it slope upward in a straight angle. Obviously, it is made of slabs. Okay, it is multiple slabs are arranged on top of each other. So basically, the sides will be a straight line. Correct? No curves. It is not curving inwards, but a straight line. So that is the characteristic of Vamsana type of Nagara architecture. Vamsana design is usually used for mandavas. Okay, usually Vamsana architecture is used to build mandavas, while Rekha Prasada style is used for Garbhagriha, building the shikhara over Garbhagriha. Okay, so the shikhara over Garbhagriha has to be the tallest one. So you can't actually build a very tall structure using the Vamsana style. So there the Rekha Prasada style is used. But mandapa need not be that tall. Clear? So here we use the Vamsana type. Understood? Now there is another third type also. It is known as Valapi type. The only thing is, it is a rectangular building with a roof that rises into a vaulted chamber. Sometimes it is known as a wagon vaulted building. I will again draw it here. Basically the plane, okay, the base is rectangular in nature. It's something like this. And then it rises into a kind of vaulted structure. Okay, have you seen such wagon types? Okay, these type of structures are known as Valapi type. I hope you understood the difference between all these three. So you have Rekha Prasada type, you have Vamsana type, and you have Valapi type. Okay, here is an example of another temple, Sun Temple of Konark. This is actually again a comparatively local style. It's a variant of the Nagara style. It is known as Kalinga style. We will talk about it in a bit. Okay, but one thing you can observe here is you can see that the temple is constructed over an elevated platform. See, the temple does not stand in the ground level. It is there is a platform here, and it is on top of that platform the temple is constructed. Again, a very peculiar feature of Nagara style. All right, moving on. Now we come to Central India. But before that, any questions? Santara, Nirandara, and Sarvadrobhadra style of worship plays are common for both Nagara and Dravida. We are coming to that. Okay, I mean, I will be talking about all these three types at that time. I will explain. Now, Central India. Central India means some parts of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. So here we see that temples are more or less constructed using sandstone, different types of sandstone. All right. Some of the oldest surviving structures are actually from the Gupta period. Okay, and seen in Madhya Pradesh region. And relatively modest looking structure. Okay, usually they are not exactly so grandiose. Okay, and they are, but at the same time they are not so plain or lacking craftsmanship or anything. They are relatively modest looking. Best examples: Udayagiri and Sanchi. Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh, Udayagiri in Odisha region. All right. Now let's take an example. That is the temple at Deoga. It is a Vishnu temple. Okay, Deoga temple is Vishnu temple. This is a very classic example of late Gupta period type of temple, and used as Panchayatana style of architecture. What is Panchayatana style? In temples, usually, okay, if this is the total area of a temple, the main deity sits in the center. Okay, then usually there will be sub-shrines in the four corners. So totally there are 5 shrines. Okay, the main shrine at the center and 4 sub-shrines in the corners. Such a type of architecture is known as Panchayatana style. Pancha means 5. So totally 5 shrines are there. So it is known as Panchayatana. Clear? So the Deoga temple, Vishnu temple, from the Gupta period, late Gupta period, is a very good example of Panchayatana style. Here the shikhara is of the Rekha Prasada style. It is actually a west-facing temple. Very, very, very important. Usually most of the temples are east-facing, but here Deoga temple is west-facing. Doorway with standing sculptures of Ganga on the left and Yamuna on the right. Earlier I told you, right? River goddesses are a very common feature in northern Indian temples. Okay, so this in Central Indian temples, has influence of both Nagara and Dravida style. So since we are talking about northern areas of Madhya Pradesh and all, we can see Nagara influence here also. So river goddesses etc. are shown in the doorways. So we can see Ganges or goddess Ganga on the left side and Yamuna on the right side. And since it is a Vishnu temple, we can see Vishnu in various forms. Out of all the forms, the three main reliefs of Vishnu that is seen in the Diyoga temple are Sheshashaina on the south, Naranarayana on the east, and Gajendra Moksha on the west. Sheshashaina, the Vishnu, lying on top of the Shesha snake. Okay, that is the Sheshashaina. Naranarayana means half man, half god. That form of Vishnu. Finally, Gajendra Moksha, you know the story, right? Gajendra Moksha, there is a very famous story. Gajendra being the elephant, etc., and the crocodile biting on Gajendra's leg. You know it. So these three are the main depictions in Diyogar Vishnu temple. Okay, here is the Sheshashaina Vishnu. It's a Dashavadara temple in Diyogar. And this is actually the Dashavadara temple in Diyogar. Okay, here is this one. The first one shows the Sheshashaina posture of Vishnu. Now, there is another very beautiful temple, that is Lakshmana temple. Again dedicated to Lord Vishnu. This is actually the grandest temple in Khajuraho. Khajuraho, very famous temple complex in Madhya Pradesh, consists of multiple temples. Among all of them, Lakshmana temple is the grandest of Khajuraho temples. It's actually attributed to a Chandela king named as Thanga. Clear? And it is another beautiful example of Nagara style. It has shikharas, curved pyramidal fashion ending in a horizontal fluided disc called amalak, topped with a kalasha or base. Just let me show you an image. See here, shikhara is curving inwards and ending in a disc-like structure. This is known as amalaka. And on top of that, there is a kalasha, a pot-like structure. See this? So here, this is again a typical of Nagara style of architecture, and that can again be seen in Lakshmana temple of Khajuraho, which is attributed to Lord Vishnu. Don't get confused. It's not associated to Lakshmana. It's not dedicated to Rama. It is associated with Vishnu. Clear? We can also see beautiful balconies and verandas, extensive erotic sculptures. Okay, what are these known as extensive erotic sculptures? Mithunas. I told you earlier. All these can be seen in Khajuraho temples. And again, Khajuraho temples are full of relief works, full of sculptures, carvings, etc., etc. They are all cut away from the surrounding stones with sharp noses, prominent chins, long slanting eyes and eyebrows. I will show you some examples. Okay, at that time you can look into this. Another very famous temple within the Khajuraho complex is Kandariya Mahadeva temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. Another very famous temple, Kandariya Mahadeva temple. Okay, some Jain temples are also seen in Khajuraho complex. So Khajuraho complex holds both Hindu as well as Jainist temples. Kandariya Mahadeva temple, the Lakshmana temple are all examples of Hindu temple. Chausand Yogini temple is example of Jaina architecture. Clear? This is associated with the Tantric worship within Jainism and is from a period of 7th century AD. Chausand Yogini temple in the Khajuraho complex. So look into this. You can see the dance class. Okay, this is the dance class that is sculpted in Lakshmana temple in Khajuraho. Look into this figure here. This is the Vishwanatha temple again from Khajuraho. Look into the number of shikharas shown here. See how many number of shikharas are there. The main deity is under, or the Garbhagriha is under the tallest shikhara. You can see the amalak, the disc-like structure on top, and even above that you can see the kalasha. And here you can see the Rekha Prasada type, okay, that curvilinear structure above the Garbhagriha. The shikhara is made of this style, Latina style. And on top of the mandapa, you can see the other style, Vamsana type. Okay, much slabs over each of them, and comparatively very lesser in height. But much more bulkier in nature. All features of North Indian temples, Nagara style. Here another example is shown. This is the Sun Temple in Mothera, Gujarat. Okay, you can see the intricate carvings and works that is gone into this. Plenty of three-dimensionality, very fluid works. Okay, we will look into some of this in the upcoming slides. Western India. So Gujarat and all comes here in Western India. In Western India also, the most important material used for temple building is sandstone. Okay, a grey to black basalt, that is usually the color. It's not the red sandstone, but it's more commonly we find the grey to black basalt rock. Clear? 10th to 12th century AD. Here, this is the period in which most number of temples are constructed in India. 10th to 12th century. Not just in Western India, in South also we will see that temples like Brihadeshwara, etc. are constructed in this period. 10th to 12th century. We can also find some temples with soft white marble. Okay, this is another very famous feature of medieval Indian Islamic architecture, white marble. But we can see plenty of temples in 11th and 12th centuries that is constructed using soft white marbles. Some of the best examples are associated with Jaina temples in Mount Abu and the 15th century temple at Ranakpur. All right. Now, another example, Samlaji in Gujarat. This one actually shows how earlier artistic traditions of the region is mixed with post-Gupta style and gave rise to a distinct style of sculpture that is built with grey schist. Okay, so Western type of architecture has, it stands alone on its own. But since the Gupta Empire ruled over the major portion of North India and, expanded into different directions under Samudragupta, some of the Gupta influences are also seen in Western temples. So a mixture, okay, a composite form of Western type and the Gupta type can actually be a post-Gupta style, okay, not Gupta style, post-Gupta style can actually be seen in the Samlaji area in Gujarat, Samlaji. Okay, then comes Sun Temple at Mothera. Very, very, very important. Don't confuse Sun Temple of Mothera with Sun Temple of Konark. Both are different. Mothera is in Gujarat, Konark is in Odisha. Konark Sun Temple is built by the Ganga dynasty, while the Mothera Sun Temple is actually built by the Solanki dynasty, which is actually one of the houses of Chalukyas. Okay, so Sun Temple at Mothera is an 11th century construction done by Raja Bhimdev of Solanki dynasty. Solanki, again, it is an offshoot of, or it's one of the houses of Chalukyas. Constructed in 1026 AD. You can see a rectangular stepped tank called Surya Kund. Look into this image. This is the Surya Kund. It is a tank, okay, it is a water harvesting structure. It is a tank kind of thing. And it is a rectangle in shape. And it has plenty of steps. And since this temple is associated with Surya, the sun god, this tank is known as Surya Kund. And in this Surya Kund, you can see 108 miniature shrines. Let me enlarge this for you. If you observe closely, you can see that between all these steps, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. See, like this, 108 smaller shrines are built into this Surya Kund. Clear? And a very, very, very peculiar feature of Sun Temple at Mothera. You can also see examples of wood carving tradition in Gujarat. All right. Now, walls of the central small shrine are devoid of carving and are left plain, as temple faces the east, and every year at the time of equinoxes, the sun shines directly into the central shrine. Another peculiarity in the Sun Temple of Mothera is that the walls of central small shrine does not have any kind of carving. Okay, the temple, outer portions and areas, the mandapa, etc. are very beautifully carved. But as far as the sanctum sanctorum is concerned, the central small shrine is concerned, its walls are not at all carved. It is devoid of any kind of carving and it is left plain. This temple faces east. Okay, we learned earlier that the Dioga temple faces west, but this one actually faces east. And every year, during the time of equinox, I hope you know what an equinox is. Okay, in your younger classes, you would have studied about it, solstices, equinox, etc., etc. So every year at the time of equinox, the sun shines directly into the central shrine. That is a peculiar feature of Mothera Sun Temple. Think about it. That was the level of detailing or the level of expertise of the artisans who were there in those times. Clear? They found out, they related this temple with climate, okay, with the movement of sun. Clear? So, yeah, that is about Sun Temple in Mothera. Now we are going to Eastern India. So before that, any questions? Do we find wood carving in any other temple? Yes, we do find wood carving, especially towards Kashmir region. All right, we will talk about that. In Kashmir region and all, we find plenty of wood carving. And we also find wood carving in earlier structures, very early structures, but we do not find evidences of wood as such because the wood would have disintegrated. But we see holes here and there where once wood pillars stood. Okay, but historians and archaeologists believe that these holes are here, because this was used for erecting wood pillars in, a very long time back. In East India, especially now Northeast, Bengal and Odisha, we will be looking into each of them. What survives now are, say, later brick or concrete temples. Earlier works are gone. We do not find much. But whatever is remaining are the renovated works, which were the renovations, which were done eventually using brick and concrete. That is what is remaining. Terracotta was the main medium of construction. It is not sandstone as we saw in northern and western temples. In Eastern India, we see that terracotta was the main material used for building. There are construction works and architectural styles associated with Buddhism and Hinduism, starting with Assam. In Assam, we can find some very beautiful works. Okay, the door frame from Da Parvatia near Tezpur and sculptures from Rangagora Tea Estate near Tinsukia. All these are examples of post-Gupta style. Okay, Tinsukia and Tezpur both are in Assam. These are two very beautiful works that we find in Assam, which actually depicts post-Gupta style. So this one again points to the fact that Guptas once, or the post-Gupta times extended into the modern day state of Assam. We have talked about, Samudragupta's expeditions into the eastern part of India. So naturally, influence of Gupta Empire is seen here also. Okay, and these are some of the examples. We also see some style that came from migration of the Thais from Upper Burma region mixed with the dominant Pala style of Bengal. So Palas ruled over Bengal, Senas also ruled over Bengal. Thais are basically, a community from Myanmar, okay, Burma, olden Burma. So because of the proximity to these regions, their influence can also be seen in temple works, construction works of Assam. Okay, and this led to the creation, okay, the combination of the Thais from Burma, their style, along with the dominant Pala style. This mix gave rise to a composite kind of architectural style named as Ahom style. Clear? Palas in Bengal is very close to Assam. Burma also close to Assam. So Burma, since Assam is situated in between, it has the influence of both these styles, and this composite style emerged as a new style named as Ahom style. Best example of Ahom style is Kamakya temple, which is also a Shakti Peeth. You know about the very famous Kamakya temple, right? And this is also a Shakti Peeth, and this is an example of the Ahom style in Assam. Now, coming to Bengal. Bengal was ruled by Pala rulers as well as Sena rulers. Okay, these two were the prominent dynasties in Bengal. And these two were very much, high patrons of Buddhism. Okay, Bengal was one of the last dominant areas in which Buddhism sustained in India. Afterwards, Buddhism went out of India. Clear? So they were patrons of Buddhist monastic sites and all. We can see Vanga style architecture. Okay, Bengal style architecture here. It's also called Vanga style. It's a particular style in Bengal. And the best example of this style of architecture is Siddheshwara Mahadeva temple. This one is actually built using black to grey basalt and chlorite stone pillars with arched niches. Okay, just understand the material that is used. Okay, black to grey basalt. You can also see chlorite stone pillars. Okay, these are the materials used to construct this one. Siddheshwara Mahadeva temple using Vanga style. Bamboo roof of Bengali hut has been borrowed. In some temples, we can see that the bamboo roof of Bengali hut, the common people in Bengal in those times, they lived in bamboo huts. Clear, the roof is made of bamboo. And you can see the example here, the temple is made of terracotta, but the roof, look at the roof here. This is known as Bangla roof. Very commonly found in houses, okay, huts, etc. were built using this style. And because absorbing this local tradition, some of the temples were also built using such a roof. Best example is Vishnupur in West Bengal. Okay, you can see here, this is the terracotta temple in Vishnupur. You can see the very famous Bangla roof. So Vishnupur, Bankura, Burdwan, Birbhum, all these are examples of the Bengal style of architecture. Odisha, last of the Eastern architectures. In Odisha, we can actually see three types. Okay, we do not have to study in depth about the three types. Just understand their names. Okay, don't forget the names. Three orders of architecture can be seen: Rekha Pida, Pida Diyul, and Khakra. Okay, these three subtypes are the subtypes of Odisha kind of architecture. Clear? And the best examples of Odisha architectures can be seen in Tribhuvaneshwara temple, Puri, and Konark. Puri Jagannatha temple, okay, I hope you know that. Then Konark Sun temple. So basically, Odisha type is actually a subtype of Nagara order only. Clear? I told you earlier, broadly, the entire thing in the entire temple architecture in India can be classified as three: Nagara, Dravida, and Vesera. But these three have its own subtypes. So Odisha style is actually a subtype of Nagara order. Clear? Here, the shikhara is vertical almost until the top when it suddenly curves sharply inwards. Let me see if there are any images. Yes, look at the Jagannatha temple here. It is curvilinear. Okay, up to here, it is very curvilinear. And then it suddenly goes inwards. Clear? This is a very peculiar feature of Odisha type. Okay, the shikhara or the diyul is vertical almost till the top when it suddenly curves sharply inwards. In Odisha, mandabas are also called as jagmohana. It's just another terminology, that's all. The ground plan of the main temple is almost always a square, which in the upper reaches becomes circular in fashion. In the crowning mastaka. Okay, again look into this temple. Actually, you can't see the base plan of this temple here, but usually the temple base is a square. But as the temple is constructed and towards the upper area, it becomes more or less like a circle. Okay, you can see the circle here, and the base is actually a square. All right, another feature of Odisha temple. Exterior of the temples are lavishly carved. Their interiors are generally quite bare. Again, a prominent feature. Exterior walls are very well carved, intricate designs, but interiors are more or less plain. And although this is a subtype of the Nagara style, Odisha temples have boundary walls. Boundary walls are usually seen in Dravida type of temple architecture, not in Nagara, but in Odisha type, it has temple walls. Konark Sun Temple, another example. This has 12 pairs of enormous wheels. Okay, again, look at the image here. Here we can only see 2 wheels, but there are actually 12 pairs of very large wheels in the Konark Sun Temple. There are 8 houses. It's in the shape of a chariot. Okay, it's like the sun's chariot. So 8 houses are there. 12 pairs of enormous wheels are there. And the southern wall is has a massive sculpture of Surya carved out of green stone. Southern wall, not eastern wall, not western wall. It is the southern wall which has a very massive structure of Surya, which is carved out of green stone. So that is the Sun Temple at Konark. Okay, now we are going into the hill stations, the hills. That is Kumaon, Kharwad, Himachal, and Kashmir. Before that, any questions? No. So continuing, the hills. Okay. So just think about Kashmir. Where is this Kashmir located? Kashmir is located northernmost part of India. So it is very close to Gandhara sites, right? Northwestern India, we have the Gandhara area. So Kashmir is pretty close to Gandhara region. And Gupta Empire ruled over almost entire northern India except Kashmir. But even then, it has Gupta and post-Gupta influences from Saranath and Mathura. So in Kashmir, the temple architecture is actually a mixture of all these styles. Gandhara style, Gupta style, post-Gupta style. Clear? Or along with the indigenous style. So here we can actually see both Buddhist and Hindu traditions in an intermingled fashion. And here the structures are made of wooden buildings with pitched roofs. Earlier Satya asked this question, where else can we see wooden structures? We can see wooden structures in Kashmir. Clear? We do not see the sandstones or anything. We see wooden buildings with pitched roofs in Kashmir. In general in hilly areas. While the main Garbhagriha and Shikhara are made in the Rekha Prasada or the Latina style, Mandapa is of an older form of wooden architecture. Okay, here also, since Kashmir is in northern India, naturally, the main Shikhara above the Garbhagriha is made of Rekha Prasada style to get that height. But the Mandapa is made of purely wooden structures, and sometimes the temple takes the shape of a pagoda. You know the pagoda shape, right? That usually sometimes Kashmir temples take the shape of a pagoda. Okay. The most important phase in which Kashmir sees architectural heights is the period of Karkota. Karkota period of Kashmir is the best example, or the say golden period of temple making in Kashmir. I mean, the most number of extensive temple building is seen in Karkota period. Best example of such temple is Pandretan. Clear? And in general, we see a water tank attached to a shrine. That is seen in even South Indian temples and all. Usually, the temple has a water tank or a pond associated with the temple. Okay, Pandretan also has that, and it is dedicated to Shiva. Also, buildings are made of wood. The roof is peaked and slants very slowly. Why is it constructed as such? Because there is heavy snowfall in winters. So if the roof is flat, then the snow will, mount on top of that, and the entire structure might collapse due to the weight. So instead of that, the roof is constructed in a fashion that it is slightly sloping to all the sides and peaked at the center. So snow cannot settle down. Clear? Moderately ornamented, not too much carving. Moving away from the post-Gupta aesthetics of heavy carving. Clear? Kashmir was, outside the Gupta Empire. So we do not see that much, intricate carving as we see in the Gupta regions. It's only in a moderate carving. Does not mean that it's completely, plain or anything. There are beautiful carvings, but not as much as we see in the post-Gupta phase. But at the same time, we see a row of elephants at the base and a decorated doorway. These are the only embellishments in this shrine. Let me show you the image. Okay, the image is not here. I'm sorry, the image actually is in your textbook. Okay, I forgot to keep it here. You can see a number of elephants. Here, a row of elephants can be seen at the base of this temple, and you can also see a very beautifully decorated doorway. These are the only embellishments that we can see in this temple. Other than that, it does not have too much intricate works as we see in the post-Gupta period. Mention may be also given to Champa, another temple. This one also shows amalgamation of local traditions with the post-Gupta style. And here we see Mahishasura Mardini and Narasimha. Not here. Mahishasura Mardini and Narasimha are seen in Laksna Devi Mandir, which is an evidence of post-Gupta tradition merged with the indigenous Kashmir style. So apart from the Pantretan, we have some other important temples also. One is Champa. Then you can see the Mahishasura Mardini and Narasimha panels in Lakhna Devi Mandir. Clear? Which has influences of both post-Gupta period and indigenous period. And yellow color is very much seen in these temples. So the archaeologists believe that the yellow color is actually, possibly due to the use of an alloy of zinc and copper. The alloy of zinc and copper is a metal that is yellow in color. So the presence of this yellow colored iconography actually let the historians believe that it is actually made of the alloy of zinc and copper. And the construction is done during the reign of Meruvarman, very famous king of Kashmir, Meruvarman. Okay, so that is all about Kashmir and the shrines there. So we looked into northern India, we went to western India, then went to eastern India, and now Kashmir also covered. Now coming to South India. Okay, so Dravida style or the South Indian temple style. You can see a very beautiful Gopuram of Mathura Meenakshi temple here. Look at it, the amount of carving and the amount of work that has went into carving all these things. Very beautiful work. So again, differing from the North Indian temples, Dravida kind of architecture has a compound wall. Almost all the temples in South India has a compound wall. And because it has a compound wall, there should be a gate also. Right, there should be an entrance. And this gateway is adorned with beautiful gopurams. Padmanabha Swami temple has gopuram. Almost all South Indian temples have some sort of a gopuram. All the prominent ones at least. Okay, Vimana. Okay, in the North Indian temples we call this shikhara. But in South Indian temples, the same area is called as Vimana. Clear? Instead of shikhara, the terminology is Vimana. That's it. So Vimana is like a stepped pyramid that rises up geometrically rather than curving like the shikhara. So in North Indian temples, it is like this. It curves in towards the center, the shikhara, like a prasada step that is seen over the Garbhagriha. But in South India, the Vimana is more like a pyramidal structure. Clear? Not the inverse curving type, but a pyramidal structure. Just like, much more similar to the Pamsana type, but not exactly the same because of the variations in height and the structure and all. Clear? Shikhara in South India. Okay, South India also has this terminology called shikhara, but it is not exactly same as its North Indian counterpart. In North India, the entire structure together is known as shikhara, but in South India, the crowning elements are called as shikhara. Okay, let me show you this image. This part is known as shikhara. Clear? The other region, this part is known as Vimana. In North India, the whole thing is known as shikhara. Together, the entire thing is known as shikhara. Above that, you have the Amalaka, and above that, you have the Kalasha. But in South India, Vimana is up to the top, just before the Kalasha part. And the topmost part is known as shikhara. Clear? The Amalak and Kalasha together are known as shikhara in South India. Entrance. In the entrance of South Indian temples, you can see sculptures of fierce Dwarapalas or the doorkeepers. You can also see large water reservoirs. Okay, ponds, etc. associated with temples are very common in South India. Clear? So this is a very basic illustration of a South Indian temple, the Dravidian type. Okay, you can see that Mandapa is here. You can see shikhara, you can see Vimana, Garbhagriha, and this is the Gopura. Since you have a compound wall, you also need an entrance, and above that entrance is very beautifully carved. Clear? That is known as a Gopura. So if you remember the Sanchi Stupa and all, that also has a compound wall. But instead of a Gopuram, they have a Torana. If you remember yesterday's class, they have a structure that is something like this. Right? This is the Torana. But in Hindu temples of South India, you have this beautiful entrance structure that has a Gopura. Okay, now continuing. Sometimes we also see some subsidiary shrines. Naturally, in North India also we find them. We already talked about Panchayatana style and all. But here also, South India also, we have some subsidiary shrines which are either incorporated within the main temple or located as a separate shrine as such. Okay, within the main temple itself, not inside the Garbhagriha, no. But within that main temple structure itself, there might be some areas for different deities, or there will be a separate building as such for the subsidiary shrine. That is again seen in South Indian temples. Main temple in which the Garbhagriha is situated is one of the smallest towers. Very, very, very important. Clear? In the North Indian temples, if you remember, Garbhagriha is situated beneath the tallest shikhara, tallest tower. It is quite the opposite in South India. In South India, the Garbhagriha is always underneath the smallest tower. Why? What would have been the reason? Very simple. This Garbhagriha region would have been the part of the temple that was built the earliest. Okay, so the innermost portion of the temple, the core portion of the temple, would have been the earliest or the most oldest construction. Clear? So some sort of structure is made. Then eventually, when major kings came into power, they renovated this temple and constructed more and more, boundary walls and more structures, outwards. So the innermost structure, being the oldest, does not have that much of a extravagant shikhara or anything, vimana or anything. Okay, best example, Srirangam. Srirangam temple in Tiruchirappalli. This has as many as 7 concentric circles or concentric rectangular enclosure walls, each with a gopuram. So some king built the innermost area. Then after some time, other ruler came to the throne. He built the next outer wall. Afterwards, a different ruler came. He renovated it and built a second outer wall. Similarly, different kings renovated the same temple and built more and more concentric rectangular walls. So that temple now it's a magnificent temple, which with more and more elaborate, very elaborate structures. And obviously, as we come to modern phase, the architectural quality also increases. So the gopurams and all becomes more and more illustrious towards the later phase. The innermost temple has very, very less, or it has the smallest of all the vimanas. Okay, some other examples of South Indian temples are Kanchipuram, Thanjavur, Madurai, Kumbakonam, etc. etc. All these are such beautiful examples of South Indian temples. Temples are also very, they became very rich administrative centers as well, controlling vast areas of land. This feature we have discussed in ancient India. I told you temples were not just places of worship. They were also places of education. They were places of economy. They were places of a lot of things, including administration. Clear? There was this system of Devadana and all, Brahmadaya, Devadana systems and all, and the land went to the temple. Devotees, kings, emperors, all of them contribute to the temple. So temples became extremely powerful that it had even some certain administrative powers in its locality. Clear? So in general, these temples, South Indian temples, can be divided into 5 types based on the shape. Clear? First one, square or kuta or chaturasra. Okay, chaturasra means square. Second one, rectangular. That is ayatasra or shala. Elliptical ones are known as gaja pristha or vrittayata. Wagon vaulted types are known as nasi, and circular one is known as vritta, and octagonal one is known as ashtasra. Ashta means 8 and sra. So ashtasra means octagonal, 8-sided. So based on the shape of the temple, South Indian temples are classified into 5. Chaturasra, ayatasra, vrittayata, nasi or vritta, and ashtasra, octagonal. Clear? Now, Pallavas. You know about Pallavas. We are going to look into a very few number of temples. Okay, that's it. So starting with Pallavas. Pallavas are mostly Vaishnavite. Okay, almost all the Pallavas are predominantly Vaishnavite, but we can also find some mostly Shaivite, but we can also see some Vaishnava shrines that are constructed during the period of Pallavas. They are also influenced by the long Buddhist history of Deccan. Okay, Pallavas ruled over the Andhra Pradesh region and northern Tamil Nadu. So they have influence from nearby regions also. So we have influence of Buddhism from the Deccan region. Earlier structures of Pallavas are mostly rock cut out from a single rock. or say multiple rocks, but still it's a rock cut. But later on, it becomes structural. It's not anymore cut from a rock, but rather, made as such from the scratch. So earlier Pallava architecture is rock cut, while the later ones are structural. Very important. Early buildings are generally attributed to Mahendravarman I, a contemporary of the Chalukya king Pulikeshin II. All right, those are individual points. And among all the Pallava kings, the most important names include Narasimhavarman I, also known as Mahamalla, who actually built the city of Mahabalipuram. Narasimhavarman I, Mahabalipuram, very important. Why? Because Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping had a visit to this place, Mahabalipuram. So please do look into Mahabalipuram in depth. Okay, I think we have all seen that picture, Modi and Xi Jinping sitting in the Mahabalipuram beach and all. Okay, so this city was actually built by Mahamalla or Mahamalla, the other name for Narasimhavarman I. But the shore temple within Mahabalipuram is constructed by Narasimhavarman II. Clear? The shore temple in Mahabalipuram is actually constructed by Narasimhavarman II. He is also known as Rajasimha. And this one, shore temple, has 3 shrines. 2 are dedicated to Lord Shiva and one facing east, other facing west, and the middle one is associated with Lord Vishnu, shown in the form of Anantashayana. We also have evidence of a water tank. So a typical Dravidian temple. 3 shrines in total. 2 of them attributed to Shiva, one facing east and one facing west. Middle one is attributed to Lord Vishnu in the Sheshashayana style, okay, or the Anantashayana, both are same. And we have also an evidence of water tank. Another beautiful example is the Rajarajeshwara temple, also known as Brihadishwara temple, the Shiva temple at Tanjavur, built by Rajaraja Chola, and this is the largest and tallest of all Indian temples, Brihadishwara temple. Largest and tallest. This one has 2 large gopurams and also a very huge Nandi figure. Nandi is the vehicle of or the Vahana of Shiva. I told you Vahana is a prominent feature in all the Hindu temples. You can see the Nandi here, Nandi figurine. This is actually from Brihadishwara temple. The above figure, this one is shore temple in Mahabalipuram. Okay, and the Brihadishwara temple walls are filled with mythological narratives associated with Lord Shiva. Okay, I already told you this. Nadaraja form is there and various other Tripurantaka form of Shiva. All these adorn the walls of Brihadishwara temple. You can see the Brihadishwara temple here. This is the largest and the tallest of all Indian temples. Not just South Indian temples, all Indian temples. Clear? You can see the Vimana here up to this point. You can see the Shikhara on top of that. You can see the Mandapa here. Clear? There is no elevated structure or anything. This directly is built in the ground. Unlike in North India, there is a plinth, elevated plinth area. But here you can't see that plinth. The temple starts from the down, ground level itself. Okay, and here is the Ratha temple in Mahabalipuram, which we will be talking about in the upcoming slide. You can take a note of this temple now itself. The Ratha temple in Mahabalipuram. Okay, let me go to the next one. Architecture in Deccan. So Deccan, think about this area, Deccan region. This is actually the central part of India, right? So it has influence from both northern style as well as southern style because it's in the central middle portion. So here we find all kinds of styles. We can find Nagara type of temples here. We can also find Dravida kind of temples here. But because of the influence of both of these, there emerged a different style known as Vesara style. This hybridized style is very predominant in the Deccan region. Deccan region was ruled by the very famous Rashtrakuta kings, and the best example is Kailashnath temple at Ellora. Yesterday we studied about Ellora caves. At that time I told you that Ellora caves have examples of Hindu, Buddhist and Jainic architectural works. And Kailashnath temple at Ellora, carved out of a single rock, is the best example of Vesara style built by Rashtrakutas. Okay, sorry, it's actually, no, this one is not a Vesara style temple. This is a complete Dravida building. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. It is a Dravida temple with a Nandi shrine. I told you in Deccan we can see all 3 types. Okay, we can see Dravida, we can see Nagara, as well as we can see Vesara. This one, Kailasnatha temple at Ellora, is a typical example of a complete Dravida style in the Deccan region. And this is carved out of a living rock. Clear? So, sculpture of the Rashtrakuta face at Ellora is very much dynamic. It's larger than life size, infused with unparalleled grandeur and most overwhelming energy. So, very beautiful architectural works, very beautiful sculptural works, has a lot of energy, larger than life size figures, and very grandiose kind of decorations. Clear? We can see that in early Western Chalukya period, we see the Ravanapadi cave in Aihole. Okay, Aihole is related with the Chalukyan period, and the Ravanapadi cave in Aihole, which belongs to the early Western Chalukya period, contains a very beautiful Nadaraja, Shiva. This Shiva, this Nadaraja Shiva, is surrounded by a larger than life-size depiction of Saptamatrikas. Saptamatrikas means 7 mother goddesses. Okay, so this is again part of mythology and all. So 7 mother goddess figurines actually are presented surrounding the Nadaraja idol. Clear? This is known as Saptamatrikas. And 3 of them are towards the left of Shiva and 4 of them are towards his right. And it's a very graceful, slim body, long oval shaped faces, topped with extremely tall cylindrical crowns, and shown to wear short dhotis marked by fine incised striations indicating pleating. So basically all these attribute to the fine amount of carving that goes into the structure in the Ravanapadi cave in Aihole. Okay, so Ravanapadi cave in Aihole is associated with Lord Shiva, associated with the Chalukyas, Western Chalukyas, and here we see the Nadaraja figure surrounded by the Saptamatrikas. 4 of them are towards his right and 3 of them are towards his left. Okay, and all of them are adorned with beautiful, tall, cylindrical crowns. Also wears short dhotis, which has striations, okay, indicating the pleating. So such fine level of carvings can be seen in Ravanapadi cave. The hybridization and incorporation of several styles was the hallmark of Chalukyan building. Very, very, very important. Chalukyan buildings shows hybridization to a very great extent. It has an incorporation of multiple styles. Okay, best example, Pattadakal. In Pattadakal is not a single temple. Okay, there are as many as 10 temples in Pattadakal. Some of them are Dravida, some of them are Nagara, and you can also see other types. All are attributed to Chalukyan period. Clear? During Vikramaditya II, we can see by his chief queen Loka Mahadevi, this temple has been constructed. This temple complex, it is not a single temple, it is a temple complex constructed by Loka Mahadevi, who was the chief queen of Vikramaditya II. And we can see Pallava buildings at Kanchipuram, Mahabalipuram, etc., which are also in Dravida tradition. Pattadakal temple is not Dravida. Pattadakal temple has Dravida and Nagara also. Yesterday, I think we saw about this regarding a couple of temples within Pattadakal temple complex. Eastern Chalukyan temples like the Mahakuta and the Swarga Brahma temple at Alampur has northern styles from Odisha and Rajasthan. Look at this. So here we have Dravida type. Along with that, we have Nagara type in Pattadakal. We have influences from Pallava buildings. We have influences from, say, Odisha style, Rajasthan style, etc., etc. So this amalgamation of multiple styles is a special feature of Chalukyan architectural works. Clear? Multiple styles. It's not a predominantly particular style of architecture. It is an amalgamation or hybridization of various types. Durga temple at Aihole, another example. It has upsidal shrine, which is reminiscent of Buddha Chaitya halls and is surrounded by a veranda of a later kind, with a shikhara that is stylistically like Nagara one. Again, look at this. Nagara type shikhara. Then you have this upsidal shrine, which is very much close to Buddhist type of architecture. See, so various features are taken from various types and incorporated or amalgamated or hybridized into one form. This is a very peculiar feature of Chalukyan temples. Okay, another example, Ladkhan temple at Aihole. These are wooden roofed temples, not commonly found anywhere else. Wooden roof is very much feature of hilly areas and certain eastern Indian regions and all. So these here also in Ladkhan temple in Aihole, we see wooden roof. But the temple, the walls are all constructed using stone. Hoysalas of Karnataka, another very famous dynasty that ruled over South India. Hoysalas, best example, the temples at Belur, Halabid and Somnathpuram. Extremely complex with so many projecting angles. So you can see the stellate plan in Hoysaleshwara temple. Stellate plan means what? Star-like plan. So the floor plan of the temple would be much more like a star. Okay, let me see if there are any. Yeah, here is an example of the Somnathapuram temple. Look at the floor plan. Can you see that star-like shape here? See, this is actually a very important feature of Hoysala temples. Okay, now Hoysaleshwara temple at Halabid is in Karnataka, and this is actually constructed using dark schist stone and is a very good example of Vesara type. This has a highly original star-like ground plan, that is a stellate plan with very good amount of carvings and decorations and all, and is dedicated to Lord Shiva as Nadaraja. Shiva in Nadaraja is the main idol in Hoysaleshwara temple at Halabid. Okay, and also we can see double building with a large hall for a mandapa to facilitate music and dance. I am not sure if you can see it here. Okay, there are actually it's a double building kind of architecture where with a mandapa for dance, music, etc. etc. It's not shown in that particular image, but you can see that double building style in Halabid, that is Hoysaleshwara temple. You can see Nandi pavilion. So there is a depiction of the Vahana of Shiva. Intricate carving is there. Procession of hundreds of elephants with their mahouts can also be seen. Can you see it here? Let me enlarge this one. Can you see procession of hundreds of elephants? Okay, it's not so clear. Okay, when I enlarge it, the clarity goes off. But there's such amounts of such a type of carving is also there in Halabid. You can check the textbook. Okay, the image when I enlarge it, it's losing its clarity. That's why it's not so clear here. All these are features of Halabid temple. Again, a very famous temple in South India. Vijayanagara. In Vijayanagara, plenty of foreign travelers have came here, such as the Italian Niccolo di Conti, Portuguese Domingo Paes, Fernandan units, Duarte Barbosa, and the Afghan traveler Abdul Razak. All of them has marveled about the construction during Vijayanagara Empire. We can find a lot of information regarding Vijayanagara Empire and its construction and all from their travel accounts. Vijayanagara style is actually a synthesis of Dravida temples and architecture of Islamic styles. Very important. Okay, Vijayanagara type is actually a synthesis of Dravida type as well as Islamic type. Why? Because it has influences from Delhi Sultanate. Also, all the contemporary dynasties such as Bahmani kingdom, Golconda, Bijapur, all these are Islam. Deccan region was also ruled by Islamic rulers. So due to this, Vijayanagara type is a combination of Dravida type and Islamic type of building. Okay. Now coming to Buddhist and Jaina architectural developments. But before that, any questions? Wooden roof, Ladkhan temple is exception, or we find other in this style of architecture? No, wooden roof in Ladkhan temple is actually the Chalukyan type only. Okay, that's what I told you. It's in the Chalukyan area. Chalukyas have this peculiarity of building temples using amalgamation of multiple styles. Clear? So in Ladkhan temple is prominent for that wooden structure. That's it. Similarly, we talked about some other temples which have eastern influences, some other temples which have western influences, some temples have northern influence, some temples are again Dravidian type, some have Pallava influence. So that is the peculiarity of Chalukyan type. It has influences from a lot of different types, alag types. But as far as Vijayanagara Empire is concerned, Vijayanagara type is concerned, it has the influence of Dravidian type and Islamic type. That is peculiar for Vijayanagara empires, Vijayanagara temples. Now coming to Buddhist and Jaina architectural developments. So Ellora, starting with Ellora. Ellora has everything. Okay, it has Buddhist, Hindu, and Jainist monuments. Badami, Khajuraho, and Kannauj have also the remains of any of two. That is also correct. Khajuraho has Jaina and Hinduism. Kannauj also has something like that. Badami also have influence. So at least two of these three religions are seen in all these three areas. So the construction or the architectural style is also an amalgamation of these religious styles. Best example, Bodh Gaya. In Bodh Gaya is the place where Siddhartha achieved enlightenment and became the Buddha. Correct. So here there is a very beautiful temple known as Mahabodhi temple. The image is shown here. Look at the temple. Okay, Mahabodhi temple is nothing like what we have seen so far. This temple is constructed with brickwork, lot of brickwork. The first shrine, the original shrine of Mahabodhi temple was constructed by Ashoka. Okay, the Vedika around it is actually a post-Mauryan construction, probably Pala period. And the actual Mahabodhi temple that we see today, okay, this image, this is actually a colonial period reconstruction. Okay, the oldest one, the main original shrine was constructed by Ashoka. The later on Vedika and etc. were added into this temple in the post-Mauryan period, Pala period, etc. etc. And the temple as we see today is basically a renovation or a reconstruction by the colonial period, in the colonial period. So very recently built, about 200 to 300 years ago, that's it. This is neither Dravida nor Nagara. Look at the feature here. The narrow it is narrow like the Nagara temple. Okay, then in Nagara temple, the shikhara is very narrow. I told you that. It is very tall but narrow. So that is here. Here also we can see that it is very narrow and tall. But it rises without any carving like the Dravida one. In North Indian Rekha Prasada style, that inward carving is there. The Rekha Prasada style, the Latina style. South Indian temples have no carvings. It's more like a pyramidal structure. It's a straight line. So this is an amalgamation of both. Just like the North Indian temples, we have a very tall shikhara. But just like the South Indian temples, the shikhara does not curve inwards, but it actually is in a pyramidal shape. So this one is neither Nagara nor Dravida. Another example of this Buddhist and architectural style is the very famous Nalanda Mahavira, of which we can know a lot from the writings or the records left by Huanshan. So this was supposed to be constructed by Kumaragupta in the Gupta period, and it had all kinds of Buddhism. Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, all forms of Buddhism were practiced in the Nalanda monastery, but predominantly it was a Mahayana university. Okay, so sculptural art of Nalanda is very famous. We can even now we have evidences of archaeological evidences of all these things. It is done using stucco, stone, bronze. So all these materials are put into it. It was developed out of a heavy dependence on Buddhist Gupta art of Saranath. Clear? So Nalanda Mahavira is basically designed based on the influence from the Buddhist Gupta art of Saranath. Sculptures are depicted in three-dimensional forms. So a very beautiful, very depth. It's not like the panels where it does not have much movement or anything. Here the sculptures are all depicted in very three-dimensional forms. The back slabs of the sculptures are very detailed. Okay, and in the Pala period, we can also see some metal sculptures here. Alright, now bronzes initially relied heavily on the Saranath and Mathura Gupta traditions. Of the Buddhist works, we can see bronzes, okay, the bronze metallic works for the first time, or mostly predominantly used in Saranath and Mathura Gupta traditions. As far as Nalanda's sculptures are concerned, Buddhist deities of Mahayana pantheon such as standing Buddhas, Bodhisattvas such as Manjushri Kumara, Avalokiteshvara, and seated on a lotus and the Nagarjuna are all seen in Nalanda. So Nalanda University is a Mahayana offshoot. I told you that. Similar Vajrayana and Theravada are also practiced there. Okay, so you can see naturally the bodhisattvas which are associated with the tantric form takes shape here. Avalokiteshvara, Nagarjuna, Manjushri Kumara, all are depicted in Nalanda sculptures. Here is the very beautiful archaeological remnant of Nalanda University. Okay, continuing. So late 11th and 12th centuries, we can see, this became a tantric center, and Vajrayana deities such as Vajra Sharada and Khasarpana, Avalokiteshvara, etc. are also added. Avalokiteshvara, etc. came in the late 11th and 12th centuries, once it became a tantric center. Clear? Depiction of crowned Buddhas occur commonly only after 10th century. Earlier, we do not find Buddha in a crowned fashion. That happens only after 10th century. Various Brahmanical images not conforming to the Saranath style are also found in Nalanda. This is a very curious statement. Although it is a Buddhist monastery, still we find some Brahmanical images not conforming with the Saranath style. Sirpur in Chhattisgarh is an early Odisha style site belonging to the period between 550 and 800 AD with both Hindu and Buddhist shrines. This is another example. Okay, not associated with Nalanda. This is a different example. Sirpur in the Chhattisgarh state, modern day. Here we find an early Odisha style. Again, an amalgamation of Hindu and Buddhist shrines. Both are together shown here. Okay, now coming to Karnataka. Here also we find amalgamation of multiple types. Okay, starting with Jaina shrines at Shravanabelagola. Very famous statue of the Gomateshwara. Actually, this is a granite statue, okay? No, not this one, the Bahubali statue. Bahubali statue is also there along with Gomateshwara in Karnataka. So the Bahubali statue is actually made of granite. World's tallest monolithic freestanding structure. This one is the world's, sorry, I got completely, I messed it up. I'm sorry for that. Gomateshwara statue, which actually depicts Bahubali. This one is the largest or the tallest monolithic freestanding structure in the world. This is actually seen in Karnataka, and this is associated with Jainas, okay, at Shravanabelagola. I will explain it once again. Gomateshwara statue is actually a depiction of Bahubali. Clear? And this is made of granite, and this is world's tallest monolithic freestanding statue. And this is actually commissioned or actually constructed during the reign of Kamundaraya. Okay, he is one of the kings from Ganga kings of Mysore. There are two Ganga dynasties. One is the Western Gangas, and another one is the Eastern Gangas. So this is Western Gangas or the Gangas of Mysore, and Kamundaraya, one of their kings, constructed or ordered the construction of this Jain shrine in Shravanabelagola. Another Jain shrine is in Mount Abu. That we all know. Very famous Mount Abu temple, constructed during the time of Vimal Shah. Vimal Shah was the minister of Bhoga. Okay, so Vimal Shah, he was the person who ordered the construction of Jain temples in Mount Abu. It has very simplistic exterior in contrast with the exuberant marble interior. So here the interior is beautifully carved, but the exterior is not so much carved. In earlier phase, in Mothera, Sun Temple in Mothera and all, we saw that central shrine is not carved, but outer exteriors are very well carved. Here it's the reverse. Okay, simple exterior but exuberant interiors. There is a rich sculptural decoration with deep undercutting creates a lace-like appearance. Unique patterns on every ceiling, graceful bracket figures along with doored ceilings. All these are say characteristics of Jaina temple at Mount Abu. The great Jain pilgrimage site, Shatrunjay Hills, near Palitana in Kathiawar, Gujarat. This one also has many scores of temples clustered together. Okay, this part of the chapter covers about Jaina, Hindu, and Buddhist architectural works together. So we already saw some Buddhist works such as Nalanda, etc., etc. So all these are the different Jaina architectural works. Statue of Gomateshwara, Mount Abu temple, Shatrunjay Hills, etc., etc. Okay, so just understand the location. Shatrunjay Hills is in Gujarat. It has a complex, okay, it has a cluster of temples. So here you can see the Lakshmana temple in Sirpur, the site in Nalanda, Jain sculpture in Mount Abu, Dilwara temple, Mount Abu. Look at this again. As I have mentioned in the previous slide, the inside of the temple is very beautifully carved. Clear? So this is the very famous Dilwara temple in Mount Abu. Coming to Mahabalipuram. Mahabalipuram, I briefly talked about this earlier. It is constructed during the period of Pallavas in the 7th and 8th centuries. And here we can see some very beautiful panels. The descent of Ganges from heaven to earth, or say Kiryatarjuniya or Arjuna's penance, a poetic work of Bharavi. Shiva, who has one hand in the boon bestowing gesture or the Varada Mudra, are all seen in Mahabalipuram. Descent of Ganges, Arjuna's penance, and Shiva in Varada Mudra. These three are seen in Mahabalipuram. I hope you know the story of the descent of Ganges. Okay, Bhagirath's penance, after which the Alaknanda, the river Alaknanda from the heaven falls down to earth as Ganges. That is the story. So that is depicted in this panel. Kiryatarjuniya or Arjuna's penance, that is also here. It's a very famous work of Bharavi. It's also shown in this Mahabalipuram panel. And Shiva in the Varada Mudra, that is also shown. Humans and flying celestials are also a part of this. Carved birds and animals can also be seen. Lifelike elephants and their pairs of deers who are under the shrine. Okay, you can see all this here. These are some secular features that we find here in Mahabalipuram. Elephants, deers, animals, birds. Okay, cat who has been shown standing on his hind legs with his head raised, imitating Bhagiratha or Arjuna. So I'm not sure if we can see it here, but even we find such other animals also. Elephant, deer, cat, etc., etc. All these are inscribed into the walls of Mahabalipuram architecture. Ravana shaking Mount Kailasha, another famous work which we have to look into. You can see that depiction here. Okay, here is Ravana sitting underneath, and he is trying to shake Kailasa, and Shiva is sitting over and above. Goddess Parvati is here. Okay, so this one, the Ravana shaking Kailasha, this we talked about yesterday also. The left wall of the Kailashnath temple, cave number 16 in Ellora, that is the very famous panel containing Ravana shaking Mount Kailasha. This composition is divided into several tiers. Okay, you can see that. Here is one tier. Okay, here is the second one. Here is the third one, fourth one. Okay, so the fifth one. Clear, you can see different tiers in this panel. The lower tier depicts Ravana, multi-faced and multi-armed, shaking the mountain. Correct? The upper half is divided into 3 frames. Okay, this is one frame. This central frame is the first one. Then you have the left frame and you have the right frame. So the top portion is divided into 3 different frames, and the center one is occupied by Shiva and Parvati, as you can see from this image. Their torsos are slender with heaviness in its surface treatment. Arms are slim in full round. You can see that, the torso are all torso etc. are very thin and all, very rounded arm. Okay, all are, if you can observe the image from that itself, you can see all these things. It's not a heavily built or anything, very thin, slender images. Ravana is shown as multifaceted with multiple arms and all, easily shaking Kailasha. Clear? So that is a very famous Ravana shaking Mount Kailasha panel in Ellora, left wall of Kailashnath temple. It is an 8th century construction. Lakshmana temple, Khajuraho. Okay, so the temples at Khajuraho are all made of sandstone by Chandela dynasty. All these things we already talked about. Lakshmana temple was completed in 954 AD by Yashovarman and is a very good example of Panchayatana type. I am not going to repeat what Panchayatana style is. I already told you that. This was constructed on a heavy plinth, just like other Nagara styles. Okay, this one consists of an Artha Mandapa, which is just a porch kind of thing. Mandapa, which again is a porch. Mahamandapa, a greater hall. So basically all are mandapas, but different level of grandiousness. That's it. Artha Mandapa, Mandapa and Mahamandapa, and Garbhagriha with Vimana. So all these are features of Lakshmana temple in Khajuraho. Outer walls of the Garbhagriha and outer and inner walls of the circumambulatory path are decorated with sculptures. Again, no need to repeat this. I have already mentioned this earlier. Erotic sculptures such as Mithunas are used a lot in constructing interior walls and interior halls. Intricate carvings and decorations are seen. Chaturmukha Vishnu is in the Garbhagriha. Okay, Lakshmana temple is associated with Lord Vishnu. I told you that earlier. Chaturmukha Vishnu is actually the idol within the Garbhagriha. Vishnu not in the form of Anandashayana or anything, but Vishnu in the form of Chaturmukha Vishnu. Clear? And as I have mentioned, this is a Panchayatana type. So four shrines apart from the main shrine is there, and in each of them there is a form of Lord Vishnu, and in one of them there is Surya. So it is a Panchayatana type. In the main one you have Chaturmukha Vishnu, and then you have four sub-shrines in the four corners. Three of them has Lord Vishnu only. One of them is given to Surya. This is the type of architecture in Lakshmana temple in Khajuraho. You can see the image. This is the very beautiful Lakshmana temple. Okay. So yeah, we come to the end of this class, but I think I missed a question. Sandhara, Nirandara, Sarvadobhadra. Okay, yeah, I thought it is here. Did I miss it? I remember reading it, but I did not see that point in the slide. Did I miss here or did I skip a slide or something? I am not sure. Okay, anyway, Sandhara, Nirandara and Sarvadobhadra are all based on, again, it's all forms of Hindu temples. You can, best way to remember Sandhara, Nirandara and Sarvadobhadra is looking into the picture. Okay, it's based on how many entrances are there and all, and based on if there is a Pradakshina Pada, etc. etc. Okay, if there is one, then you have, it is known as Nirandara. If it's not there, it is known as Sandhara. And if the temple can be accessed from all sides, okay, it's something like this. If the temple can be accessed from all four sides, it is known as Sarvadobhadra. Just Google it, okay, and you can find the images. That is actually mentioned in this textbook, but either I missed it or I forgot to add that in the slide. I was supposed to tell you about it. Okay, that is again given. It is anyway given in your NCERT 11th standard textbook. Please go through it. Sandhara, Nirandara, and Sarvadobhadra. Nirandara means with, Sandhara means without, and Sarvadobhadra means can be accessed from all four sides. Clear? All these are types of Hindu temples again. And is it common for both Nagara and Dravida? That I will check it up and tell you. Okay, is it there in all of them, or is it a particular feature of only one of it? I will comment it in the YouTube comment session after I end the session. I will also put it in my Telegram channel. You can read it from there. Okay, and I'm not sure. I don't exactly remember if it is there in both Nagara and Dravida. I don't want to confuse you, so after I get clarity, I will put it there. Then, in short, we can say that temple. Here what we mean while talking Brahmanical image, Hindu images. That's it. Okay, Brahmanical images means Hindu images only. Say mythical gods, Puranas, something like that. Brahmanism and Hinduism are one and the same. Then, in short, we can say that temple architecture feature depend upon economy, geography, resources, religion, dynasties. Yes, exactly. Okay, everything is dependent. For example, in Tamil Nadu region and all, since we have majestic rulers such as Cholas and all who were extremely wealthy, they were able to build very grandiose temples. But in Kerala region, we do not have such wealthy kings. Okay, because of that, we do not find such level of constructions or architectural works in Kerala. There are beautiful works, but not as much as we see in the Tamil Nadu region or northern Indian areas. Clear? So economy is a factor. Geography is obviously a factor. Religion is a factor. Okay, all patronage from different kings are another factor. So everything is dependent. So that's it. Okay, Sandhara, Nirandara, Sarvadobhadra. I will comment it in the YouTube comment section. Also in my Telegram channel. At that time, you can check it out. I will put and place an image of the extract from the textbook in my Telegram channel. You can read it from there. Okay, so that is it. We have come to the end of today's session. And by that, I think there is only one more lecture remaining from art and architecture. Okay, just one more remaining. Tomorrow, we will look into the last one, I think the chapter is regarding Indo-Islamic architecture. There are two chapters. One is regarding Indo-Islamic architecture and another one, I don't exactly remember the title. Okay, anyway, by tomorrow's lecture, the entire series will be completed. If you have any doubts, please feel free to ask me. You can also ask me personally in WhatsApp or Telegram. The contact details are given in my Telegram link, which is also given in the description section in YouTube. Okay, so please remember to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified. Share it with your friends also. All right, so we will see it again tomorrow for the one last time in this series. So until then, bye bye.